All right, so it's the March 17th meeting of the Economic Development Commission. So we'll take just a minute and introduce our newest member. Cynthia, do you want to do instructions?
Sure. So I'm happy to introduce you to Josh Stern. Josh is our new admin assistant, taking on Mary's position, who many of you know, maybe not everybody, but Josh started last week. He's a UConn grad. He is a Mansfield native.
Yes.
So we're really happy to have Josh here. He's also working part-time in Columbia doing similar work in terms of minutes and agendas for their Planning and Zoning Commission and Inland Wetlands Agency.
Yes, been a board clerk for Columbia since the beginning of February and doing very similar things. And I have been living in Stores since I was 1.5. So very familiar with the downtown before and after the renovations that happened while I was in high school, and happy to be here.
Josh, are you part of the Mountain Dairy Stearns?
No, everyone thinks that.
It's an assumption.
Yes, no, I'm actually just Stern, not Stearns.
Right. And it's a different spelling too.
It is.
Well,
Stern.
welcome. I know
Paul Stern.
Cynthia and Kathleen are very happy to have you.
Paul Stern corrected me on the name. I made the same mistake with Paul Stern the other day. But welcome aboard, Josh. Glad you're
Thanks
here.
a lot.
Wonderful. We do not have a quorum yet to do minutes. So let's continue moving right along. We do have today being St. Patrick's Day as well as UConn men's basketball game at 6:40. So we're going to try to keep things moving. So we'll circle back for minutes if we get another member in here for quorum. So next is reports and member updates. So do any of our members have an update for us this evening? All right. Seeing none, let's move on to staff updates. And we'll turn it over to Cynthia.
Great. So I have 2 updates under staff updates. Restaurant week concluded on Sunday. Wait, was it just Sunday? Was it a week ago Sunday?
A week ago.
Sorry, yeah, time flies. So we did a debrief, Kathleen in our office and Margaret in Ryan's office, the town's communications specialist and the Thread City team. We talked about kind of what we can improve, what went well. I think there was general consensus to continue this. So that's very exciting. We did send out a survey to the restaurants and we are asking for responses by tomorrow. So that'll help us formulate the plan for next year. We'll start meeting, I think we talked about meeting in October. We sent out of our office thank you letters to all the restaurants and all the Mansfield, so we took on the Mansfield restaurants and the Mansfield sponsors. So yeah, that was a lot of good buzz. And again, thank you everybody here for participating and talking it up. The other piece is just to remind you of the UConn webinar series, which starts next week on the 23rd. The first one will be on how businesses, particularly small businesses, can bring in interns. And so we'll have 2 folks from UConn Career Services. And again, Kara Workman, who's on this is part of the 4-town economic vitality group from Bolton, Mansfield, Coventry, and Tolland, I'm sorry. So anyway, we're excited for that. We will do another webinar in April, and this one will be focused on how businesses can attract UConn students while they're at UConn for jobs and when they graduate for jobs. So last count, yesterday we had a meeting, we had about 6 or 7 people signed up. So we just did a press release today and a little more outreach. So please spread the word. And if you can join us, Again, it's 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. We thought that would be a good time before people get into their regular routines. So that's, I think, all I had that's not on the agenda. If anybody had any questions.
Great. Well, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Tony.
I thought it was great. I just think we need to expand the number of restaurants and get involved. There were, I know Cynthia said that they did not contact chains, but I think that there were some restaurants that, like Oriental Cafe, that really aren't chains. They're just two of them, I believe, and yet you have Fenton River and Dog Lane in there, which are clearly owned by the same people. So, but anyway, I think it was a really good thing, and I don't know how the Wyndham restaurants responded, but I was out on a Wednesday night and the places were full. It was really quite amazing.
Brian?
Yeah, I think looking forward to next year, I definitely think that Mansfield was shortchanged by WFSB. Melissa Cole's piece there. The town was mentioned, but none of our restaurants were featured, so maybe we can do something about that next year.
Brian, your reviews were awesome. The ones you posted on social media, that was really fantastic. Thank you for doing that.
No problem. It was a pleasure. I gained a lot of weight.
all for a good cause. All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Cynthia. Business updates, openings, and closings. Anything new since our last meeting? Brooklyn Dumplings has had their soft opening, I guess.
Yeah, we couldn't think of any, but if any of
Okay.
you all have some, Josh is kind of the keeper of that list now, so.
Great. All right. Housing updates.
Yeah, so Linda prepared some updates for me. Two of them we already talked about at the last meeting, so I won't go into any detail on those. The standard at Four Corners, the special permit for that project, which again is 392 units, approximately 15,000 square feet of commercial space, that was approved on February 22nd by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Linda indicated that staff has met with the applicant subsequent to that approval to answer questions regarding next steps in the permitting process. She did note that they continue to see, as Linda said, unabated interest in multifamily residential development. So nothing seems to really have changed there in terms of the interest. So she'll continue to provide updates to the EDC if there are additional applications or interest from developers.
Great. I think it's probably also helping fuel developers' interest that the first one got approved and it's no longer being opposed by UConn. So I think that probably put a cooler on things while Shepherd was being appealed. That's no longer an issue. Hopefully things get back on track. So any other updates for housing, Cynthia, or that we're good there?
That was all.
I have a question.
Yep.
Has there been any follow-up from Agbotic? I know that a lawsuit was filed against them, and I'm just wondering, have they made any initiatives, any further attempts to begin?
I don't know of any, Tony. I mean, I know it's in litigation, so I don't know if Ryan can comment or not, but I haven't heard anything new.
Nothing that can be shared publicly, basically.
Okay. All right, and then we have our calendar report. I don't know that there's much. Do we talk about anything regarding the calendar, Cynthia, or is that just more of a placeholder?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything there that we need to get into.
All right, so we'll get into our discussion items. Cynthia and Kristin and I met this week to discuss our presentation to Town Council, which we have slated for the end of the month, I believe. very similar to the ones we've done in the past, kind of an overview of the mission very briefly, and then a summary of our activities over the last 12 months, and then a preview of what we're planning on doing over the next 12 months. I don't know that if people want us to run through it. If you do, we can kind of zip through the slides, or if you trust us to do what we did the last time, it's pretty much what we did the last time. So just with new content, with stuff that we did as a group. So any thoughts one way or the other on that? All right. In that case, we'll move on to our next item on the discussion, which is nominations for the Taste of Mansfield Champion Award. And I believe this is a Cynthia item.
Yeah, so we have 4 nominations, 2 individuals and 2 businesses. And so the way that we set this up, I think at the last meeting, Brian volunteered to serve as the EDC delegate. So at the Taste of Mansfield meeting on April 4th at 11:30, we will discuss that with the staff team and Brian. I know that Jennifer was looking for an ag committee rep, and I don't believe that she has one yet. So hopefully she'll have one, because that's a key committee for this process. So then we'll go from there and start, make those determinations and then do some recognition. So as I mentioned, I think before, a few people got on there, a couple of people or entities that were nominated a few times. So that's positive. And obviously people are very encouraged by the work that they're doing to support local foods in Mansfield. So stay tuned. And I'll mention that at the end of the meeting. Sorry.
You obviously can't divulge the nominations just yet because they're top secret, but
yeah.
Great. When's the meeting to begin discussions of who might win?
It's April 4th, that Monday.
Wonderful. Well, Brian, good luck. I'm sure you'll do a great job, and hopefully they have the Ag Committee chair by then, or representative by then. That'd be great.
Looking forward to it.
Next on the agenda, we have Brian, who's going to give us an update on the ARPA funding proposals for our town.
Sorry, it's taking me a second to come off mute. Let's see if I can find a quiet place. I'm quasi watching kids, so I have a very responsible 7-year-old, so I'm putting my faith in the process. All right. So yeah, I'll actually, hey, let me actually activate my video now that I'm in a space that might be able to do that. All right. So yeah, the town has made quite a bit of progress in recent days on its deliberations. The town council met this past Monday, regular meeting, and part of its agenda was a public hearing to get some public feedback on rescue plan funding proposals. The council's basically been talking on a high level about rescue plan funding proposals for a few months now, and staff have been revising some of the proposals based on feedback from residents and council members and other stakeholders going back to the fall. And so with respect to projects that would be of greatest interest to the Economic Development Commission, I'll highlight a few. So the town is receiving a little over $7.5 million in rescue plan funds. And the town council seems amenable to, generally speaking, to recommendations that I've put forth about general distributions for these funds. And so there are a few different categories of projects based on town council votes on Monday. Those that have been like fully green lighted, meaning that the council voted in support of it and staff can basically move forward with making those things happen without further delay. And then what you might call a conditional approval, which is approval for the concept, basically approval for the proposed funding. But some additional work is needed in the way of things like implementation plan. It might be something we've never really done before. And so we're going to circle back to the council basically in piecemeal fashion. It won't be all at once. It'll be, an update or two on this proposal and that proposal over, a series of council meetings that'll probably carry on into the summer. So those are the first two categories, the fully green lighted and the ones that are, again, kind of conditionally approved. And then there's another category that basically, I guess you could say, further study, further discussion, further deliberation needed. And so let me, again, highlight those that I think from an economic development standpoint would probably be of greatest interest. So right out of the gate, I would touch on a local business relief or local business assistance program that we're looking to prop up. And Cynthia's, I'm gonna be leaning heavily on Cynthia in the weeks and months ahead. I've been consulting with her already on this, but as we look to pull together an implementation plan, she's going to be essential. So this is, in a nutshell, monies that are intended to help businesses that have been impacted by COVID, whether they had to lay off staff, they're in arrears on their lease payments, they perhaps delayed the launch of a new product or service because of the pandemic. Monies that are intended to help get businesses off the mat and help them get back on a healthier track as we come out of the pandemic, and that's $370,000 as it stands right now. And this is one that I said would be in the sort of conditionally greenlit category because we need an implementation plan. So we have some like a framework, I guess you could call it, that we've assembled at the staff level, thinking about eligibility criteria and what sorts of uses would qualify. And we're probably talking about awards, with ceilings in the $20,000 range. We want the money to be meaningful, but we also want to be able to spread it around and help more than just one or two businesses. And so that's kind of the challenge, is finding that balance where the award is significant enough that it actually, moves the needle, but at the same time, again, we're able to help more than just a couple businesses. And so that's kind of probably program that you guys would be most interested in. There's also money that's been proposed for marketing the downtown and promoting or implementing the Fort Town Economic Vitality Working Group's action plan. So this is a plan that's been developed from representatives from Mansfield, Coventry, Tolland, and Bolton. And so we're looking to, do our part as one of the four towns to help move that plan forward in implementation, and that's $30,000. So between the local business assistance and the marketing downtown and Fort Town region monies, that's about $400,000. We're also looking to provide funds in the way of an arts relief fund. Helping our local artists, and in particular, with an eye towards public art and ways that we could use public art to enhance the attractiveness of a variety of areas of town, whether it be the downtown or the Four Corners. As development in the Four Corners, hopefully accelerates, and streetscaping is of greater interest or high on the priority list. There are areas where installing plantings don't work so well because you have underground utilities that could be disrupted. And so public art, might be a suitable substitute for vegetation, where you can literally set something on the ground. You don't have to worry about its roots penetrating into water and sewer pipes. So those are kind of, I guess you could say, the most directly, related to, things that are in the sort of the purview or the scope of the Economic Development Commission. Just a couple things I'd touch on very briefly. The proposals, staff proposals that the council took action on also included funding support for social service organizations. These are organizations that work with vulnerable populations of a variety of different sorts. So that's to the tune of about $350,000. What we're calling the Mansfield Digital Inclusion Initiative, trying to bring public Wi-Fi into more public spaces in town, largely town-owned properties, parks and town-owned parking lots and places where, families gather and maybe people don't have reliable or any internet at home. And so the best place for, a working mom who's looking to apply for another job while she takes her kid out playing might be, our park by the community center or another, town-owned property. We want to make those make high-speed internet available more broadly to people who need it that don't have it at home. And then, really just a few different ways we're trying to prop up affordable housing. Basically providing seed funding to the order of $500,000 for affordable housing projects that are basically to be named later. The town, I think as the EDC knows, recently established an affordable housing trust fund. And so we haven't, populated any funds in that project, fund yet. That fund will ultimately receive funds from development projects that move forward that provide payment in lieu monies, but we're looking to kind of get that fund up and running. And then another project would be funding in the order of $750,000, $750,000 to help connect the proposed Eagleville Green project to public wastewater system. And and so those are some of the projects I would point to. Again, there's still definitely more work to be done, and we'll be presenting more to the council and fleshing out a lot of implementation plans so the council knows exactly what it is we're looking to do, and we can hopefully direct these monies to areas of greatest need. But that's it in a nutshell. Happy to field any questions people have.
Ryan, take it away.
Yeah, Ryan, we're applying for a grant on the Eagleville Green affordable housing project, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, what stage is that in, and how's that all going to fall together with the proposed ARPA funding?
Yeah. So I don't have the grant application in front of me, but I want to say it was on the order of a $4 million funding request that would leverage this $750,000 is kind of part of the match to help make the project happen. So the timeline. So this is the Connecticut Communities Challenge grant program that Brian's referring to. It's basically a newly propped up funding program that the state created. The State Department of Economic Development created with federal funds, I believe, rescue plan funds, funds and CARES Act funds, one of the two. And so yeah, we have support, from UConn and CROG and Masonic-Care and a number of other stakeholders, but I don't know that we know for sure. I'd have to look back at the program literature to see if they gave us a timeline for when we'd likely hear something. I suspect it'll still be a while.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Brian, the $500,000 for affordable housing grant seed money, is
Yeah.
that most likely going to the Eagleville Green project as well?
It's possible that a portion of it might, again, this is really for the council, and so we would expect recommendations to come from the newly created Affordable Housing Committee. So I don't want to speak for that committee. I don't want to obviously speak to the council because, I think it's all very TBD basically. But, I certainly think it's a possibility that, the Eagleville Green project is a $15 million project. And so there's a lot of funding, it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing, some of this has to fall in place first and something has to be the first to happen. And so we're hoping that this and certainly, if the community challenges grant is successful, some of these other, funding avenues that they've pursued will fall into place. But I think that it's certainly within the realm of possible, without saying yay or nay. I think it's within the realm of possible that, if the project gets really close and it's just, just that little bit short, that that the funding, in that trust fund, would certainly be considered. I appreciate the opportunity to give an update.
Regarding that local business assistance, I can definitely understand how that could be a challenging one to implement. Was there any thought given to doing like a matching type? I was sort of thinking like there was so much PPP and other grant money out there for struggling businesses. And, depending upon how many employees you have, you do pretty well with PPP, rounds 1 and 2, and then different grants. But there was never anything that was like, let's try to enhance stuff. It was all like getting by, right? And so if this money is kind of flowing through the town, I was thinking that there should be like a benefit to the town. And so if it was stuff like personal property or real estate type enhancements, and you're partnering with the property owner or the business owner, then theoretically there'd be an increase to either the personal property list or the grand list, which would help increase tax revenue. So it sort of is like a investment in the future kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, and actually, so that's exactly the way I was looking at it. So there really is, I hate to put it in like business terms, kind of take the human element out of it. But yeah, that return on investment that you really are investing, not just a handout, and it comes back to benefit the town more broadly. One of the things, not to put Cynthia on the spot, but she did uncover some guidance, which, I guess on first read, it's a little discouraging because and I'm gonna turn over to Cynthia to maybe speak more to this, but it looks now like some of the money that we had thought could go towards basically either new starts or enhancements and, like you said, expansion efforts. It looks, I'm gonna forget the terminology here, but basically you have to, I think, demonstrate that you are a disproportionately, quote unquote, impacted community by the pandemic. And Mansfield, which isn't a bad thing, we've done reasonably well. Some communities have been really hard hit. So Cynthia, I don't know if you want to say a little bit more to that.
I was just grabbing my cheat sheet here, Ryan, but I think you covered it for the most part. Yeah, when Ryan asked us to look at the final federal rule, I noticed it then that the facade improvements were generally for, as Ryan mentioned, the disproportionately impacted communities that fall within a qualified census tract. And I do not believe Mansfield falls into that category, that census tract. I do want to double check and noted that to Ryan, just with him and Charmaine or CCM. CCM sort of confirmed that with their recent toolkit that they released on ARPA, their sort of 2.0. So that is discouraging, because that's definitely something that would benefit all the commercial areas in town. So unless I'm told differently, that would probably be hard to fund. But I don't want to give up until I completely talk to somebody and clarify that. So, but generally, yeah, it doesn't look like we would qualify.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or thoughts or ideas or feedback for Ryan? All right. Then we will move on to our EDC and subcommittee assignments. I think we're all assigned to subcommittees at this point, right? Is anyone not assigned to a subcommittee? All right, so then
I'm sorry, Steve, I don't think Brian or Nancy are, or Anthony at this point.
Okay, then what we'll do, Brian, Cynthia and I will reach out to you after the meeting and give you the 3 different subcommittees that we have. It's business outreach and retention, governance, and I forget the third one.
Development project review.
Thank you. That's right, development project review. So if you have a preference right now, that's great. If you want to chat after the meeting, we can figure out which one you're most interested in.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it and I'll email you.
Perfect. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And we'll get Nancy and Anthony
Now, that
on
would
there
be
as well.
that would be ex officio.
I think on the subcommittee, you're a participatory member, right? On the
Okay.
subcommittees, yeah, it's like a regular full member on the subcommittee, I think, right?
Yeah, I think we're silent on that. I don't know when we had the old subcommittee format. I do not know if our ex officio members served on the subcommittees, but I don't think we have any. I'd have to double check the bylaws, but I think it's silent on that piece.
Okay.
But I'll double check.
Great. And then
I
we
thought
will get out.
I thought we appointed Brian as a member of the commission, and I'm the ex officio.
Oh, there's two ex officio, you and Brian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're talking about the subcommittees, Madam Mayor.
I understand, but I thought that I stand corrected.
All right, so we will get appropriate assignments out to different groups. I think for the development review subcommittee, which I think is Lane and I, we're going to be looking at this new Yukon housing project at Mansfield apartment site. For the business outreach, I got the list from Kathleen yesterday, so I'll email that out to everybody with the list of questions for the interviews. And the third one, the governance, I think your task is to look for new members to round out the commission. And I believe, I'm probably jumping ahead here, but I think we're going to end up missing our next meeting because there's a conflict coming up. So the idea was all of our subcommittees will have next month, we won't have an EDC meeting, and in lieu of that, we can work on getting some of our subcommittee work done without adding to the burden too much. Did I get that right, Cynthia?
Yeah, it is school vacation week, so I know that I'm out that week, and there may be others. So that's what Steve and I discussed in preparation for this meeting, to kind of fill that time period to May with some sort of offline work by the three subcommittees.
Perfect.
And Valessa and Lane, I can circle back with you on that. I know, Lane, we canceled the April meeting, so we can chat.
Great. Discussion of in-person meetings. So it looks like the town council has transitioned back into in-person meetings. So I'm guessing that we're probably not far behind. Is that correct? Tony?
I think you have an option, Steve. We're supporting hybrid meetings. So clearly there's some real advantages to people to be online because you don't have to drive anywhere. And if you have conflicts, like Ryan is managing children at the same time, there's some real advantages to it. So you can decide as a commission whether you want to be in person or hybrid. Ryan thinks it's environmentally friendly to go hybrid. So you don't have to actually choose, but you can choose.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah, I support the mayor on that. Absolutely. It'd be great to have the option to be online, especially this time of night.
Okay. Would anybody prefer not to be online? Does anybody want to go to hybrid, or should we stick with online for now?
Can I just double check, Steve? I'm sorry to jump in.
Yeah.
So Tony and Brian and Ryan, my understanding is the governor is allowing, his executive order expires the end of April. So at that point, I don't know whether will towns be, if that expires, will towns be allowed to do purely remote?
Yeah, so right now there would need to be a legislative fix for that. You're right, that barring the absence of any new or changes in statutory authority, the expectation would be you go back to in-person meetings. However, hybrid still remains a possibility. You just would need to have a quorum in person. That said, there are advocacy efforts, sustained advocacy efforts ongoing right now to try to make the the remote and hybrid meeting options basically permanent, saying that, yeah, this came into being because of a pandemic, but the world has kind of changed in a lot of ways. And really, for all the reasons we just kind of cited, for, giving people the option, the people that maybe want to go in person can go in person, and the people that have, work, life, family, whatever commitments that make it hard for them to get to a physical place for a meeting would be able to participate online or remotely. So I think right now there's a pretty high degree of certainty, although nothing, I guess, is truly certain until it's enacted. But everything I'm hearing and seeing makes it sound like there's an expectation that the law will ultimately be changed to allow for remote participation moving forward.
Well, I will coordinate with Cynthia, because our next meeting we're going to skip, so it'll be in May. So it'll probably be at least hybrid. And if you can do in person, that's great. If not, we'll have you hybrid, virtual, whatever works. So stay tuned for that. Next, 5F is the Yukon Town Collaboration Update. Tony, I don't know that we've met with the Framework Committee since our last EDC meeting, but I know we're meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
So perhaps we'll have an update for you after our meeting tomorrow. We'll have some wonderful progress to report back to you. Anything you want to add to that?
Ryan had some news about this framework that I think is really useful.
Oh, all right.
Are you asking me to share the news that I shared with you and Ben? Is that the news? Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was actually just formally invited by the Board of Trustees to serve on the search committee for the next president. So,
phenomenal.
So that's exciting. And I don't know if that's a standard invitation. No. Okay. I was going to say, it seems like it might be a new thing that UConn's doing. And certainly I think it's great. And hopefully some town perspective and some perspective on what quality town university relations look like. Hopefully that'll play a role in the selection process.
That's a really encouraging update.
Ryan, I'm glad to hear that. Absolutely. Congratulations.
All right, Valessa.
Going back one topic, Ryan said in passing that we would need a quorum in person for hybrid, which makes hybrid not actually possible. Yes.
Sorry. So just to clarify, what I was saying is that if the legislature, if there were no changes to the current public meeting laws, basically if things reverted back to the way they were, which they will if there's no legislative fix, then you would have to have a quorum in person and only a minority could participate remotely. But what I was trying to say, expectation that will change.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that little piece.
Yep.
So thanks.
All right. So we have a number of communications mostly related to Restaurant Week in our packet. So make sure you take a gander at those. We talked about our upcoming meeting schedule, skipping our next meeting in April, replacing that with committee work so we can get some stuff done. And then we'll meet again in May. And then the next item after that will be future meeting topics. And I know Brian has something he'd like to bring up, so we will turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, Steve. Mansfield Restaurant Week was success for I want to kind of segue off that idea and maybe offer up doing a Mansfield Artist Week, where the artists have an opportunity to have an open studio and possibly use a storefront. And I'd be happy to do an expose on each artist and do a biography and show some work, on Mansfield Connection.
How does that, I don't know if Cynthia or Tony, I know there's the artist open studio, and I don't think it's like a day, it's like a series, but could that be kind of wrapped into this?
It's the 2 weekends after Thanksgiving and in early December, and it's regional. And a number of Mansfield artists do that, but it's not downtown. So I think what Brian is suggesting is we use an empty storefront and have an opportunity for people to set up. We tried to do a craft festival on the green at a decade ago, less than a decade ago, because I was on the council. And the problem was that it was an awful lot of work for the artists and they didn't sell enough to make it worthwhile. So I don't know whether we could do something different. I mean, it's always been a very attractive idea. It's just that Kathleen worked really hard on it and we got maybe 7 or 8 artists and they sold a few little things, but not enough to make the time worth it for them. And they just said they wouldn't come back.
Cynthia and then Brian.
Yeah, so Tony makes a good point. I think we were over ambitious. And I think if I remember, and you're right, Tony, it's going back about 10 years, is that we did it every Friday. Like, I think we did too many I think we did it for 2 years, but so Brian, your idea is, something in the downtown store strategic action plan. And we had some interest from UConn, last August, and I didn't hear back from the particular person in the School of Fine Arts. But I know the Ballard is interested in helping us with that. So, trying to put some puppets in the storefront. So there's definitely some interest, and it's actually on my list to follow up with School of Fine Arts Dean Ann DeLeva, because I think the property owners would be amenable, and not just keeping it to the downtown. Is there something else we can do at Eastbrook? I know they have done some things for artists there, and I'm not as tuned in as I should be with what they're doing there. So they've been pretty ambitious about recognizing artists. So yeah, I think there's, not to bring up hybrid again, but I think there's some sort of hybrid project that could definitely be something to work on.
Great, awesome, great idea, Brian. Anything else? Yep.
Yeah, I just want one last comment on maybe an artist week. I would like to see it in the warm time of the year, but while UConn's still in session. I know the Northeast Open Studios is in November and December. Maybe in the warm season would be a good idea.
Yeah, it's a really neat idea. Kristin, go ahead.
And just to add on to that, I know that perhaps having some of the schools have an opportunity for students to show art could bring families down, could bring more people down to this as well. So considering that as well.
Come in with the kids.
The group who did the gallery, it was actually a kind of a gallery at an Eastbrook Mall. They did it because there was a vacancy and they barely, I don't know if they had to pay any rent at all. And there were some really interesting things. There were some UConn biologists who did electronic electronic microscope photographs that were fascinating. They also had a kids wall. And then around Christmas time, they had a craft show, which had some really interesting stuff in it. And so it might be helpful to talk to the people who organized that to see what their reaction was. I mean, so we could certainly build on that if it made sense.
Great, Brian.
One last thing, I have contacted a couple of artists and they show a great interest and they are looking for ways to promote themselves and their work.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it all works out beautifully. I mean, if it's focused on Mansfield, use the space in the downtown to activate the empty storefronts, and who knows, maybe we can even use some of that ARPA funding for arts relief fund, to make it all come together. Sounds like a really great idea. So let's definitely continue to try to push that one along. Anyone else have any other items for the agenda? All right, then in the interest of St. Patrick's Day and UConn's victory this evening, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Brian, is there a second?
Wait,
Oh,
Stephen,
yep.
did we ever approve the minutes?
I don't believe we have a quorum.
Oh, we never got a quorum. Sorry, carry on.
So
Apologies.
we're good. Okay. Thank you for keeping up on me though, because I definitely need someone to double check me because I'll miss it if I don't. So, so I had a motion from Brian. I think I saw a second from Kristin. All in favor? All right, everybody have a great evening. Thank you so much. And we'll
Good
see
night,
you in
everyone.
May.
Happy St. Patty's Day.
You as well.
Take care.